Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for coming to watch. So I've got guys an update on a major winter storm that we have brewing here for the southern United States. We have a pretty rare storm system that we have to talk about with snowfall that could be seen as far south as northern Mexico. We've got all the details coming right up. All right, so thank you for joining me here on this Wednesday evening. We have a lot to talk about in this video. We're going to go over all the latest details and the final information, the final forecast on our major winter storm that is about to move across the southern United States, producing very intense bursts of snowfall. I think we could definitely see some amounts that could definitely get close to making history there. All right, so we're also going to talk about obviously our California wildfires because we have very, very concerning stuff going on over there, and I think it's definitely worth mentioning in today's video. So we're going to start here. As always, take a look at your current radar. You can see at the moment we have three things, right? One is we do have a little piece of energy here in the northern United States. This piece of energy in the northwestern United States kind of producing a lot of that snowfall in the upper elevations of the Pacific Northwest, right? That will continue moving south. It's going to kind of phase with this piece of energy and precipitation in the south, and they're going to kind of meet over here in the central or eastern United States, excuse me, and they are going to kind of, once again phase together and kind of create this big winter storm that we have brewing here. Right, for areas of the Ohio Valley, mainly a little bit farther south, though. Okay, and then finally, we also do have a little bit of our backside snowfall that got caught up in our northern stream energy here across the interior northeast. We haven't talked about some lake effect snow that has been kind of moving through this area as well, so definitely some isolated snow showers with this, but our jet stream right now is pretty wild. You have a lot of cold air. That was a horrible line there, but basically, you have a lot of cold air that's kind of come down here from Canada, and you just got this blast of Arctic air that's coming down once again from Canada. And I'm telling you right now, I'm out here in Long Island, and it is frigid. I mean, this is easily the coldest air we've had all year so far. So really wild stuff with that. All right, but if you also take a look closely here, you can actually see a little bit of that snow showing up in northern Mexico, which I think is insane. But we're seeing snow as far south of the border here. We're seeing already some sleet moving into areas of far western Texas here, so extremely far south. Okay, this is just, not an area that sees snow almost at all during winters. I mean, it's not a surprise for some of these areas to not see any snow during the winter at all. And the fact that we're already seeing some it's pretty wild. But you could definitely say that you can, safely say that this is pretty historically farther south, where we're seeing that snowfall. But just pretty wild stuff overall here. But we move on here to the watches, warnings, and advisories. Taking a look at our alerts right now, so you can see our map is brightened up pretty good. You can actually see we have a lot going on right now. So if you take a look in the southern United States, look at all these winter weather advisories in this purple shade here. This is going all the way out from southern counties in New Mexico all the way out to like southern Illinois there. Right, but if you're in any of these areas, you're talking about possible ice accumulations or just a couple inches of snowfall here, but definitely slick travel. That's going out for, sections of Texas here. A lot of counties in Texas, especially northern Texas up towards the Panhandle into Oklahoma there. Also in southeastern Kansas, southern and central sections of Missouri into southern Illinois. Okay, so a lot of counties currently under those winter weather advisories. That's for areas that, once again, we'll start to see some of that snowfall pick up on a couple of accumulations there with inches of snowfall expected, and that could definitely create some relatively hazardous travel conditions, so definitely just be aware of that. Also, we do have a pink shade here. Look at this. The entire state of Arkansas is currently under a winter storm warning. Okay? These areas you see in pink here, this is going out for northern Mississippi, far western Tennessee, extreme southern Illinois into the boot heel of Missouri, okay, portions of southeastern Oklahoma, and really right around the DFW, Texas area, Metroplex in northeastern Texas. In this pink shade, we have our winter storm warning. That's for areas that will probably see a little bit closer to half a foot to a foot of snow with this system. I do think there could be even some areas that could see, a little bit higher than a foot of snow, which is, I think, is going to be pretty wild, to say the least here. But these are the areas that will really start to see the worst impacts. And also, we have still winter storm watches that are yet to get upgraded here across sections of southern Kentucky into the rest of Tennessee, a little bit of northwestern South Carolina, western North Carolina, northern Georgia, and northern Alabama. So a lot of these states we almost never talk about with snow. It's pretty wild. I mean, just saying winter storm watch for South Carolina, just I don't know, it just feels wrong. But a lot of these areas really don't see snow, and they struggle to see a lot of snow all year. But the fact that we're seeing winter storm watches and warnings out here is pretty wild. All right. We also take a look in this teal shade, this light blue shade. This is where we have the cold weather advisories. This is a relatively new type of warning here, but this is also obviously pretty rare to see it this far south. But we're seeing cold weather advisories all the way down to central Florida, which is pretty crazy. But Tampa, Orlando, all these major cities are currently under these cold weather advisories. So if you're in this teal shade, really from central North Carolina down through the Carolinas, obviously South Carolina there, into Georgia, Alabama, and really most of Florida here is where we have the cold weather advisories. So temperatures are expected to get down below freezing over a large stretch of time there. I believe it is supposed to be below freezing for over 48 hours to be considered, warranting a cold weather advisory. But that's what we got at the moment right now. Then you can also see we do have freeze warnings going out for sections of northeastern Florida here. All right, I believe that does include Tallahassee. That does go into southeastern Georgia and southeastern Alabama there. All right, so extremely cold conditions out there. That means that if you have any water or just if you have any forms of liquid, it's most likely going to freeze over at night. And definitely just want to make sure you're being aware of possible slick spots out here. So, pretty rare stuff going on right now. Another thing to mention is we do actually have more freeze warnings out here across southern Arizona, another area that really rarely sees this kind of weather, but very cold conditions, abnormally cold conditions out in the southern tier of the country at the very moment. So, one thing I do want to show quickly is I do want to move on to the wildfires in California. Okay, this is a photo from the Pacific Palisades. All right, this is an area that has been absolutely just devastated by wildfires. This is an area that we have been talking about over the past, day or two, where we have seen a wildfire breakout, obviously, and it is completely out of control with the help of, hurricane force wind gusts in the area. But this is the damage that it's done. This is 0% contained. And I mean, this is just incredible, the devastation here. Every house is burned. There's so much smoke. It's really apocalyptic, and everyone that I've seen that's been here has described it as, it looks like we're in a movie. That's what they're saying, which I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's really incredible. The destruction that this fire is creating is just absolutely insane there. So, one more thing to go back to also is the this is the Storm Prediction Center. They do also issue fire hazards. So kind of like how the SPC runs Storm Prediction Center, they obviously do their convective outlook, which is for severe thunderstorms, but this is their fire weather outlook. So right now we actually do have an extremely critical level 3 out of 3 high risk pretty much for wildfires here. The scale doesn't go 1 to 5, goes 1 to 3 here, but the scale's maxed out today, which I think is just absolutely insane. But this goes to show how critical these conditions were today, and it's pretty much perfect for wildfire spread. That's exactly what we saw. So, this is getting dangerous close to Los Angeles. I mean, Hollywood is really, really close to being hit pretty directly by the core of this wildfire. So, really just sad stuff to see out here. But if you're in this pink shade, I mean, this is where if you mess with anything flammable or, you just get. I mean, it's just there's a very, very high chance for a brush fire to start out here if you're in this pink shade. Even in the red shade, very, very favorable conditions there for wildfire spread, and that's still in that critical risk. And then you also still have that elevated level 1 and a 3 risk extending into areas a little bit farther up the coast here across Southern California. So just really wild stuff to talk about there. We're not really going to speak much else about that. Okay, but just want to keep that in back of some of our viewers' minds, because I know we do have some viewers tuning in from California. So if any of y'all are watching, just make sure that you're staying extra weather aware and making sure that you are not using anything flammable outdoors, especially when it's very windy and very dry. So Kind of move on here to the south central United States. Take a look at the NAM3 cam model, kind of looking at the outlook for our upcoming winter storm here. So as we break this down, you can see what happens. This is the 18-0, and I think the OOZ should be good to go. Still have a couple hours left to run, but I think we can look at the southern United States for this run. So once again, this is as we get into the middle of the night tonight. You can see that area of low pressure coming down from the Pacific Northwest that was producing or currently is producing that snowfall in those upper elevations. That's going to start to try to phase with our area of precipitation that will eventually form here in the deep south in the southern United States. And watch what happens here as we wake up tomorrow morning. We wake up to a pretty nasty band here of frozen precipitation across northern and central portions of Texas, and then any areas north of there, we're starting out with snow. I mean, if you're in Oklahoma City, you're starting out with a pretty nice band of light to moderate, maybe close to heavy snowfall here. But this is really starting to break out across sections of northern Texas and into southern Oklahoma there. And then also to keep in mind that freezing rain really starting to get a little bit heavier here. So if you're along that freezing mark, right around the 32-degree temperature mark, this is where you're gonna have the potential for freezing rain to fall. And obviously, we saw that with our latest Winter Storm Blair, that just moved through the Midwest United States. There, you saw what that can do. I mean, that can definitely lead to devastating impacts. So. Even just a couple tenths of an inch of ice can definitely cause major impacts. I think even some ice storm warnings are possible if the forecast does increase for this event. Okay, but a lot of snow really already starting to break out here across the region already by late morning tomorrow. I believe they already did start making school closures out in some of these areas. But watch what happens as the storm kind of evolves here. A big push of moisture here from the Gulf of Mexico really starts to feed into the main low pressure, and you can actually see all of that rain and shower activity starts to push up into Texas, and all of a sudden you've kind of got your warm sector and your ridge starting to kind of bump up towards all of this cold air. So that's going to switch people over in DFW and portions of eastern Texas mainly over to rain, and then some isolated spots of freezing rain, maybe even sleet mixed in, depending on how north you are. Okay, but this could definitely be the only factor that will really change the fact that you could go from having the potential for close to 8, maybe even as high as 10 inches of snow, to only seeing about 3 to 6 inches. But you will get a good hour to 3 hours of some form of frozen precipitation if you're in DFW, but really that mainly switches over to rain as you get into the evening hours of tomorrow, and then really tomorrow night into I believe into Friday here. All right, that's when things could definitely turn back over to snowfall, because on the backside, as that cold air continues to move farther south, this is your jet stream right now. It is all the way down into northern Mexico here, so it's past the border. But if your jet stream is this far south, you're gonna get cold air that's gonna be diving down into the backside of the storm, and that's gonna definitely lead to all of that heavy rainfall turning back over to heavy snow. So you're gonna get a couple hours of heavy snow on the backside in DFW, which depending on the temperatures, will it stick? I don't know. But if it does, you could get some pretty major accumulations with this. So this is kind of why we have those winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories. But if you're in Oklahoma, you never really do change over to rain, maybe a period of freezing rain / sleet. Okay, but that gets very, very heavy across Oklahoma, also into portions of Arkansas here. Very, very heavy snowfall moving out. I mean, this is really producing heavy bands, especially in the Little Rock area. But I mean, this is a pretty nice thumping of snow that you got for a lot of these areas as we wake up on, I believe, Saturday or Friday morning, actually. And then that kind of continues to move on to the east. So really, everything kind of happens tomorrow night, and then into obviously Friday morning, afternoon. Really, all day Friday is kind of where the main event starts to kick in. Also, watch as we do have kind of, I'd say relatively low, but we do have a little spotty severe weather threat here across sections of far southeastern Texas and Louisiana. Okay, I do think we could definitely see an isolated damage wind gust, maybe even a very, very low tornado threat tomorrow, or really Thursday, tomorrow into Friday. All right, but one brief spin up tornado and then some isolated gusty winds to damage winds possible associated with that low pressure center. Okay, but another thing to note also is that on the front side, look at all this freezing rain and sleet really starting to impact areas of northwestern Alabama into Mississippi. There, that will also lead to travel disruptions. That will cause some very slick spots out there, and then the storm kind of continues to move into areas a little bit farther north, but you can also see a little bit of southeastern Kansas, maybe as far north as southern Missouri, getting in on some of that snowfall. Really light to moderate snowfall for the Boot Heel and points north there. Right, but the snow makes it all the way up to St. Louis, makes it all the way up to central and southern Illinois on this front of the Nam, and everything kind of moves on out after that. But look at what happens behind this. I mean, this jet stream is just absolutely amplified. I mean, look at this. It's literally a complete southern drop. You go, I mean, your 540 line is all the way down in northern Mexico, which I think is pretty ridiculous. But that is a very, very far south digging jet stream here. This is a major Arctic blast, and it's just going to be the whole area is going to be filled up with frigid temperatures after the storm moves out. So very, very cold conditions as we open our weekend coming up here. So after that, what happens? Well, we take this a little bit further. We'll switch this back to the OOZ so you guys can take a look at the latest information here. But as that kind of storm continues to move off to the east, you'll see that the freezing rain does eventually spread into sections of Georgia there. It's still northern Alabama. I'm very worried for a pocket of, a couple tenths of an inch of ice accumulation. I think is certainly possible, and on those interstates, I think that's really just going to cause for some pretty messy travel, very very slow travel there, with obviously some delays, and the probability of a crash happening is I think it's definitely going to be slightly elevated there, if not pretty highly elevated. But you can see also some snow extending all the way up into southern and central Indiana there. But the snow does get heavy across northern Tennessee into Kentucky as the entire storm kind of moves off to the east here. Okay, I will say the NAM does not really agree on the snow or the freezing rain making it too far down into the Carolinas. But if you're in the interior Carolinas, especially the upper elevations will definitely do well with this kind of event because there's still going to be a lot of warm air nearby. You're seeing snow, but it is pretty far south behind where the warm front kind of extends here. So there will be some mixing issues here across the interior Carolinas. I really do think that areas of like northern Tennessee, really Nashville area points north, this area is going to be good to go with snow. You're not really going to struggle. But if you're in central Tennessee or into the Carolinas, that's where we're probably going to see a little bit more of a struggle to kind of stay consistent with seeing snowfall as your precipitation type there throughout the duration of this storm. And this continues to move off to the east. We're getting into this is late Friday night into Saturday morning here. This is right around 11 p.m. Friday night. A lot of that ice now starting to spread into section of the Carolinas there. I mean, this ridge is very, very far north, considering, I mean, I think it's just pretty wild that the NAM is actually still going for freezing rain and sleet mixing in here across the Carolinas, which does actually eventually get into central South Carolina here and even into Georgia. But this is very, very far south behind this warm front, considering that usually with winter storms, you only see that frozen precipitation, the freezing rain and ice. You usually only see that right around your 540 line, which is all the way, up here into Virginia. So I just think that you will struggle with seeing snowfall if you're in the interior Carolinas, but you will definitely have a period or two of freezing rain and sleet that will eventually come down, and then all of that precipitation moves off to the east here. So the run is not yet fully loaded, but it does end off with a pretty solid and heavy band of, once again, freezing rain across, this time, coastal Carolinas here. I mean, with the trajectory of this storm, that would likely continue into the Outer Banks. So don't be caught off guard if you're out here in the coastal Carolinas or, eastern Carolinas here, and you're not really expecting much because you don't usually see winter weather. Don't get yourself caught off guard because you don't want to be driving along the interstate or whatever, and you don't want to skid off because of how how slick that travel will be. So I'm telling you right now, there will be a possibility for coastal Carolinas to see a period of freezing rain, and then once again that kind of moves off to the east as we get into Saturday afternoon and then into Saturday evening. All right, so as far as totals go, we take a look at the South Central United States. This is on the 18Z. We can look at the OZ now, now that it is fully loaded. But if you look at the OOZ, this is the very, very latest information here from the NAM. And if you kind of push this out to the full duration of the storm, you can see we are expecting a large swath here. I mean, the NAM is going for a large swath of over a foot of snowfall here. I mean, this is pretty wild, but the NAM has gone for 14 inches of snow across sections of southeastern Oklahoma into Arkansas. I think there's a possibility that some of these areas could see right around a foot, maybe even over a foot, if this storm does overachieve. But the NAM still going very, very strong, right in on these snowfall totals here, but producing a large swath of right around a foot or over a foot of snow here across sections of eastern Arkansas western Arkansas into southeastern Oklahoma there. But I think that's a pretty concerning trend, just considering what travel would look like in this scenario. I will say everything is starting to kind of shift to the north and east. I think things are kind of shifting away from southeastern Texas here. You still got a big pocket, a big streak of 1 to 2 inches across far western Texas into southern New Mexico. There, obviously, those upper elevations will help. But I think mainly those big totals will stay a little bit farther off to the north and east. I don't know why that kind of jumped up there, but you can see as far as DFW goes, it's going to be very, very tough. But if you're looking right into here, there's kind of a drop off between 5, 6, 7 inches of snow to about 4 to 6. So if I were to give you a forecast, I would say 3 to 6 inches is what you can expect in DFW. Now it's going to be very interesting to see. Are you going to be on that northern side? And are you going to stay more snowfall there, or are you going to be a little bit too far south and you're going to see mostly rain? It's going to be a big question that we're only going to have to find out, but it's going to be very interesting to see how DFW performs. Southern Missouri, a good, 6 to 8 inches of snow is possible. Definitely into western Tennessee there, another 6 to 8 inches. But a large swath here across the board, 6 to 8 inches at least, with up to a foot and maybe even over a foot of snow is certainly possible if you're in the purple or red shade here. And then as far as southeastern Kansas goes, I mean, definitely a pocket of 2 to 4 inches is possible, but really everything's going to be mainly down here into southeastern Oklahoma into Arkansas. I do think, though, Oklahoma City could overperform. I don't know if it's actually just if you guys are going to settle with 4 to 6 inches. I think really a little bit higher than that is possible. So isolated higher totals, I think, are localized higher totals, I think, are definitely possible across central Oklahoma if we get that snow banding to really set up and really start to kind of get amplified there. All right, so we're going to also move on to our freezing rain totals here. So also here for the south central United States. So if you take this out, I mean, you can see we are expecting a lot of ice here. I mean, the NAM tends to slightly overdo things with ice accumulations. Okay, but it did nail the last storm perfectly with location and totals there. Did not overdo it at all. In fact, we actually saw an overperformance. Basically, what we saw was the actual totals ended up being higher than what the NAM was predicting, and everyone really thought the NAM was going to go, overdo it. So that kind of teaches us a lesson that we can't really ignore everything the NAM is showing, even with freezing rain here. So we look at it for this storm, you can see across central Texas, it is pointing out an area of close to half an inch of ice accumulations, which is certainly far more enough there to see big time impacts there on your road conditions. I think that once again I'm very concerned about interstates and highways. Those busy roads here are going to be covered in ice, and that's just really not going to help out travel here. So southwest of DFW into central Texas here, okay, you really need to make sure that you are staying extra weather wear and extra caution when you are driving. Make sure you're taking it slow. And if you do, if you do skid onto ice and you do start spinning and sliding, don't, grab the steering wheel and, turn it and go crazy. Don't freak out. You just got to make sure you're holding steady and kind of you have to wait until your car gains traction again and then keep going. But really make sure you're taking it slow out here. Okay, really, it doesn't seem like much, But I'm telling you guys, even just a tenth of an inch of ice can cause major problems here on these roadways. But another area of northeastern Texas with a signal of, a signal for a quarter to half an inch of ice is possible. Same thing in some portions of southern Arkansas here, but a lot of localized areas of possibly around or even higher than half an inch of ice, I think is possible. Especially the farther to the east you go into northwestern Alabama. There's that signal we saw from the NAM with that band of very heavy freezing rain. Well, here it is, and it is going for right around a half inch of ice accumulation there. So very big possibility there that we could definitely see some major travel disruptions, and I think that ice accumulation is going to be a very major topic with the system. All right. So if you're talking about in terms of snow totals here in the Mid Atlantic and the East Coast here, all right, I do think totals will be a little bit lower on this side of the country because obviously the storm is going to start to lose steam, lose some energy here. I mean, but if you look, you do get a couple inches of snow across sections of Kentucky here. Definitely not as big of a snow event as we thought, was possible here, but definitely an area of 4 to 6 inches is possible in the very southern portion of the state. And then into, portions of Ohio and Indiana, 2 to 4 inches is possible. The farther north you are with this, the less the totals will be, but maybe 4 to 6 inches if you're in far southern Illinois, maybe as far north as central Illinois could see 2 to 4 inches with this event. All right, but Southern Virginia, a good 2 to 4 inches is possible. Okay, here's interior Carolina. The OOZ run on the NAM doesn't want much snow, but there is a little signal for like a coating to an inch, mainly here for interior North Carolina, excuse me. But you can see that obviously those upper elevations will definitely pick up on a couple more inches of snow, but it is very, very possible that if you're in the very northwestern corner of South Carolina, you could end up with about a coating to an inch of snowfall. As for I-95 corridor, 1 to 2 inches with this event, this is not going to really be your event. But if things trend north, which there's still a possibility they will, if that phasing happens a little bit later, and the storm ends up being a little bit stronger, and that kind of lifts up to the north, there is the chance for this thing to kind of, instead of kind of go out to sea like this, to slowly move up the coastline, kind of enhancing totals in this area. And if we see that, then that's where we're going to see the possibility for maybe a couple inches across New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and into the rest of southern New England there. All right, so also, if you look at freezing rain totals here, or ice accumulations across this region, you can see pretty much a lot of the same here, but I will say northern Georgia does look pretty concerning with another area of around a half inch of ice definitely possible here, highlighted on the NAM, but certainly, a quarter of an inch of ice is looking pretty likely out here, even in the central or really northern South Carolina here, still close to half an inch of ice is possible. There's that heavy signal for ice in coastal North Carolina there, where we did see that hour or two of heavy freezing rain on the NAM. Well, here it is showing up with about a quarter of an inch of ice is certainly possible. So for the last part of the update, I do also want to quickly briefly touch on the real feels here. This is the wind chills in the Northeast right now. Once again, I did mention it's very, very cold, but look at this right now, guys. It is feeling like it is below zero across much of the Northeast. I mean, all the way down here into the Mid-Atlantic and into the DC area. I mean, it feels like you're in the single digits here, but it feels like you're a couple degrees below zero if you're anywhere in this purple shade. If you're in this dark or this light blue shade, talking about feels like temperatures below 10 degrees or negative 10 degrees. It feels like that just because of the wind. We're definitely seeing very strong winds here across the East Coast, but it feels like, 4 on Long Island. It just very, very cold conditions in southern New England, and this will continue over the next couple of days, so there is a potential for frost, definitely some freezing. It's just really, really cold temperatures in general, but that will likely lift over the next couple of days, kind of retreat back to the north as that warm air comes through with our upcoming winter storm. All right, so that's all I got for you guys. Thank you for watching. So we'll see you guys in the next video. So if you're being affected by those wildfires in California, stay safe out there. Once again, stay extra weather aware. If you're getting hit by the winter storm, also stay weather aware. Take it slow on those roadways, making sure that you are staying safe out there. even if you're just getting hit by snowfall, but enjoy the snow. Should be a nice, couple inches for a lot of people out here in the country. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for coming to watch, and we'll see you guys in the next video.